You're listening to the Turn Autism Around podcast, episode number 138. Today, we are doing our hot seat number 3 with our special guest, Lauren, who is a married mom of 2 girls, and she lives in Wisconsin. Lauren's little girls are Avery, who will be 3 at the time of this broadcast, and Skylar, who is just 8 months old. She is a registered nurse, and she has been mostly a stay-at-home mom for the past couple of years because her daughter Avery is diagnosed with severe autism now. So in this episode, we are going to talk all about a toddler diagnosed with severe autism, what that means, why I would not look at that as a poor prognosis, and what steps you can do when you have a lot of strengths and needs to know what to do in the right order. Lauren actually won this hot seat by completing an Amazon 5-star review and sharing that in our online community where she has taken the toddler preschooler course. Lauren said on Amazon, she gave 5 stars and said, "When my daughter was diagnosed with autism, I really had no idea what to do. We kept waiting for the professionals to help, and they did not seem to know how. This book has taught me so much and gave me confidence to help my girl. I am also taking the online course for toddlers, and it has been so helpful." So if you have something positive to say, I would love it if you would give a review on Amazon or anywhere else on this podcast or anywhere you're listening. Let's get to hot seat number 3, where we're talking about severe autism, what to do with safety needs and meltdowns, and how to have ABA staff come in and work with you to help your child to reach their fullest potential and do as well as possible. Let's get to it. Okay, so Lauren, thank you so much for your time today. I'm so looking forward to this interview.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, so let's start out by you telling our listeners how you fell into the whole autism world.
So I fell into the autism world when my daughter Avery was born in September 2018. We really had some signs right away. When I was pregnant with her, I didn't have a lot of movement, and she was breech, so I had to have a C-section. Things got really bad really fast. Even at a young age, like newborn, she was just crying all of the time. We couldn't console her. So the main way that we could get her to calm down was by watching the television and nursery rhymes. So she would want to sit in her swing all day long and swing and watch these nursery rhymes on the television. So at the time I was in nursing school, finishing up my bachelor's degree. And my husband works second shift. He's a diesel mechanic, and he would, put her in the swing and she'd be happy all day long. And then I'd come home from school, and 4 or 5 o'clock, she would start just screaming and being very upset until 8, 9, 10 o'clock. And, we would try switching formulas and giving Tylenol and Gas-X, and we'd go to the doctors and they just kept saying it was normal. We would go to different doctors and they just kept saying it was normal. So we just kind of thought maybe
she was like 3 months, 6 months, like right away, or 6 to 9 months, or
this started like probably 6 weeks old.
Wow.
Like right away. And, my mom.
So they're saying like, this is colic and this is.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'd ask my mom and she'd be like, well,
being overreactive.
Yeah. Right. And everyone would tell me their stories about how, well, my baby was really hard too. And I'm like, yeah, but this is like hours and hours. And I was just exhausted because, I'd be at school all day. I also worked, part-time and had all of this going on. So, things were really hard, and she didn't handle daycare very good. So
when did she start going to daycare? How old was she?
She was actually 6 months old when she started. Before that, she was with family. So she did okay at first, and I felt like the daycare gave her like a lot of one-on-one attention. But the older she got, the more noticeable and harder things got. It just, she really needed one-on-one and they couldn't really provide that. So, they were really good. They kept her safe. They never kicked us out. I decided to take her out, by myself. And, just, we had to do what we had to do. So, but after I had my daughter, Skylar, the meltdowns really started. So my daughter, Skylar, is 7 months old now. And when we brought her home, Avery didn't give much attention to her, but the meltdowns, like over any little thing, like we said no, or we changed her diaper and she didn't want that. Her meltdowns would last 3 to 5 hours, and we would have to sometimes restrain her because she was trying to hurt herself so bad. I was covered in bruises. She was covered in bruises. And we just knew something wasn't right.
And how old was Avery when your baby was born?
She was about 2.5. So,
wow. So at what point, was it before your baby was born that you thought autism? When were you thinking autism?
We didn't really think autism because the doctors always said everything was fine. But we did have a daycare teacher that came up to us and said, do you have autism in your family? And do you think maybe she's on the spectrum? And that really caught me off guard. And at first I was really upset. But then I saw the kids would come up to me and say, here, Avery's mom is here. Here's her clothes and her shoes and things like that. And I'm like, how old are these kids? And they would say that they were younger than Avery. I was, wow. Okay, well, she's starting to talk more. So maybe we'll get there next week or next month and it's never come, So, with these meltdowns, I took her to the doctor and the doctor, again, I told her everything. And she said, well, kids with autism don't like music and kids with autism aren't this social. And she ended in an hour meltdown.
None of this is true, right?
Right. Yes.
Actually, kids with autism, in my experience for 25 years, love music.
Yeah.
Many of them love music, including my son, Lucas. So, okay. So she was giving you false reassurance again.
Yep. And I felt like a lot of people were trying to give me that reassurance, like, oh, she's not that bad. And, oh, it's regression. You just had a baby. That's normal, And at this point, it didn't help me anymore. It actually hurt because it felt like I had to stick up for myself and say, I'm not trying to be mean to my child. I'm just trying to get her the help that she needs. So we ended up getting her diagnosed, and they did. A lot of the places were giving us 3 to 6 month wait lists. One place at 18 months. I was like, whoa. And I called everybody around and we actually got her in within 3 weeks of deciding that we wanted to get her evaluated. And she was diagnosed with severe autism. So,
yeah. And that was just a few months ago. And how old was she when she was actually diagnosed?
I think she was 2 years and I want to say 8 months. Yeah, it was just in May, Cinco de Mayo, May 5th. So,
oh, great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, then the evaluation went really good. The doctor was really great and, didn't want to set Avery off and listen to us. And it was a really good experience. So,
and was this a developmental pediatrician?
Yep. And she runs her own clinic, and it's about 45 minutes from my house. So, she's just kind of it's a small clinic where a lot of these places are really big around us. So it was a good experience.
Well, we did do a podcast episode with Dr. Cheryl Tierney, and we can link that in the show notes. She's a developmental pediatrician. One of the things she told me was that there are only 700 developmental pediatricians in the United States. And that's why, one of the reasons why there's such a wait list for autism. The other thing that you didn't mention, which I'm sure was a big part of the confusion and the turmoil and the wait lists and the struggle, is that she was basically quarantined and isolated during a year and a half of the most critical time when she wasn't around other kids and you were a stay-at-home mom and you were trying to tiptoe around the problem behaviors and trying to, getting different advice like, oh, this is just a reaction to the baby, which a lot of kids do have, trouble with. So, I mean, I'm sure COVID didn't help the situation.
No, and people would say like, well, COVID, you just haven't had her out around people, so she's just not used to it. And I would say, well, this has kind of been our excuse. Like we haven't went out because of COVID, when really we haven't went out because our daughter has meltdowns in the grocery store,
Yeah.
so yeah. But
All right. So, you then found my book, and started reading it. And you also joined my, online toddler course and finished that.
yeah.
And one of the reasons that you're on this podcast today is because you recently wrote a really great Amazon review, which I read during the intro. And thank you for that. It really does help when people leave reviews. And also, it helps people to say like, this isn't a scam. We get some like 1-star reviews that, all I'm after is money. And, I just want people to join my online course. Meanwhile, I'm producing free content like this podcast every single week, and
Right.
the low cost book that can be loaned or Kindled or free Audible trial or whatever. So what did you glean from, what information was helpful from the book and my courses, just in general?
I really like the safety aspect of it. I just thought, this was something that she would grow out of, and, definitely the safety, even if she had autism, I didn't realize how, we might always have to watch out, like overprotective with her safety. Just little things like, we had to lock up our knives because she would climb up on the counter and take the knives out. And so like we have nothing on our counter. She broke my coffee pot once. So, the fence, how we actually have a fence, but she climbs the fence. And we live by a pretty busy highway. So, well, it's like a county road, but, just little things like that with, it's not just me thinking about safety. It's actually a fact, so.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is a safety chapter in my book, and there's a safety bonus video, and we can actually link a safety, bonus video in the show notes, even if you're not a member of my online course, because safety is so important. And one of my previous clients, when I had him when he was 2 and 3, at 6, he wandered away from a neighbor, from his dad's house, and he drowned in a neighbor's pool. And that was obviously horrible. And, just some of the safety scares we've had, my clients have had, my online participants have had. And we can't be too careful. And that is something we're going to go over, is really the number one thing, that you have to do, is to keep your daughter safe, as you're teaching her and as you're figuring it out. So what are you currently struggling with, would you say? Is it still safety, or is it other things? In 2 minutes, like what would be big if you could wave a magic wand?
So safety, I'm pretty good with. I think you say in your book about Fort Knox, how it feels, and it's kind of what it feels like here. But my biggest issues right now with Avery is that she's having a lot of meltdowns and problem behaviors. She gets obsessed with things like the fridge. She wants to empty the fridge, or popsicles. She loves the popsicles, but she makes my floor so sticky all the time. She has a hard time, like, she likes to watch the TV, but then she gets bored, and I don't know how to keep her engaged. Just things like that. So the meltdowns, and then how they can escalate, from like a meltdown to like an extreme meltdown of she's delirious, and it's like she's not even there. And pretty much, I think it might be sensory overload with a lot of that coming in. So I think those are our biggest issues. We have a lot to work on. We don't have a lot of language. She can't really ask for help. She can say more and like sign more. But that's pretty much it. So right in the beginning.
More is not actually, it is recommended by 95% of treatment providers in the autism world. But I don't actually recommend more.
Okay.
And I did a video blog on why more and please and thank you are not words I would work on. So, but it is very common. So we can link that in the show notes as well. And when I say link it in the show notes, there's going to be a lot of show notes here. So if you are listening and driving and exercising and whatever, you are going to want to, for this episode, you're probably going to want to go to marybarbera.com/138. And that will have all the show notes, because this is actually a hot seat call. And we're going to talk about how to implement the 4 steps of the Turn Autism Around approach to help Avery, who will be 3 at the time of this broadcast, to help Avery and her mom really do the best that they can. And we're going to talk about what are the priorities, in what order, because there is so much. She does have a fair amount of skills, and she has a lot of needs. And so, like, how do we walk people through? Whether you are just listening, whether you buy the book, read the book. I don't really care if you buy the book. I want you to read the book or listen to it. You can get it on hardback, Kindle, or Audible. And we really want you to take these 4 steps. This is our 3rd hot seat. We have done the first hot seat with Emily, who's a blogger from Mama to Cash's Voice. That was hot seat number 1. We can link that. And hot seat number 2 was a few months ago, and that was Swathina, with an intermediate learner, also a little girl, but she was like maybe 5 years of age. And now this will be hot seat number 3. And this is our first hot seat of a parent of a toddler, who has taken my toddler course. So I think this will be good. But whether you've taken it or not, you can get all these resources, the assessment, the planning form, the sleep form, everything you need, everything we're going to talk about, you can get for free by going to turnautismaround.com. Giving us your information, we'll send you these book resources. Okay, so I do plan to do these hot seats on a regular basis. And so that's why I was excited that Lauren said yes and agreed to share all this really personal information. I mean, we are only sharing first names and that sort of thing, but there are a lot of people out there that don't want to share their information, and that is their right, and I respect that. But it is always great when we do have people who are going to be like, yes, I read the book, I took the courses, and it's working, and I still have struggles with X, Y, and Z, and, but we need to keep going as a community, because you can probably attest to our community on Facebook is very active, and it's parents just like you who are struggling. Is that what you see when you go in the community?
Yep, definitely. Yep.
Yeah. So to show us your Amazon review or your podcast review, or to show us what worked from the book, just go to marybarbera.com/success. Tell us what you think and what you're still struggling with too. And you might be eligible to get a hot seat in the future as well. So Avery, as you said, she is 3 now at the time of this recording, at the time of this broadcast. She was diagnosed with severe autism at 2 years, 8 months. And one of the things I want to say before we go through her assessment forms and planning is, just because she got a diagnosis of severe autism, and just because your first concerns were back at 6 weeks, and just because she's having severe problem behavior and not talking much, does not mean, in my opinion, that when she's 8 or when she's 15 or when she's 20, that she will have severe autism and this will be your life. Like, I want to stress that you are taking action. She did spend 1.5 years in isolation, but she does have strengths. And even if she wasn't saying a word, a peep, anything, nothing is set in stone. I did do a video blog way back, something like, can you predict how a 2-year-old's going to do at 8 or 18? And my answer is no, you can't predict. I mean, of course, and I say this in my book, that, if you came on the show and she just had a little issue here or there, and she was saying contractions, and she was talking in phrases, and she was a little bit behind, and she never had a meltdown, would her prognosis be better? Yeah, I think so. I think so. However, kids with very intensive treatment where their parents are really on board and fighting to get things turned around, they can have very good outcomes too. I do know when Lucas started with his ABA therapy, there was another little boy, I'll call him Johnny, and he lived down the street. We shared a consultant that we basically brought in from Pittsburgh once a month. And if you looked at Lucas at 2 and Johnny at 2, and you would have had to put bets on who would have done better, everybody would have picked Lucas. He was saying some words. He was going to typical preschool without a fuss. He, by himself, he didn't have a diagnosis. He didn't have meltdowns. And then Johnny had he wasn't talking, he had severe feeding issues. I'm not sure about meltdowns, but he looked more impaired. And Johnny just went to college, is driving, and Lucas has moderate to severe autism. And that doesn't mean my life is ruined either. So even if she does, remain with moderate to severe autism, your life can still be very fulfilling and happy, and her life can be as well. But when I hear parents say, or even parents of twins, where they'll be like, well, this twin has severe autism, this twin has mild autism, almost like, let's put all our real efforts in, you know what I mean? One versus the other. It's definitely. Like, you can't tell now how it's going to be. So, which I think that's more hopeful.
Definitely.
Yeah. That, and that the next 2 or 3 years are going to be really important. And so you are in a good spot to figure this out. Okay. And then we also have COVID, which if anybody says, well, she has severe autism and I haven't seen that get better or whatever, it's like, we haven't had COVID with 18 months of isolation either. So I would just say all bets are off for, we have no crystal ball to look back or look forward. And there's no sense looking back and getting angry about, well, so-and-so led me astray and they should have known, because a lot of kids are colicky. A lot of babies do react. A lot of toddlers do react to having a baby sister, and it's like, you do with the information you have. And when you know better, you do better. And I think that has been, just from the brief time we've known each other over the past week, that seems to be your approach, is like, put one foot in front of the other and let's try our best.
Right. You fall and get back up.
Okay. So the first part of the assessment, I think, is what I would recommend for the Turn Autism Around approach, is this 1-page Turn Autism Around 1-page assessment, which really should only take about 10, 15 minutes to complete. You can do it online. You can print it out, fill it out. It is in the book resource for free. So once this is filled out, another part of the assessment is to do a language sample. You can choose 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or 1 hour. Lauren chose to do the language sample for 1 hour. And she did say a few words, and that is on the language sample form, which we will put in the show notes. So one thing, I'm going to talk about the assessment in just a second, but the one thing about the language sample form that I wanted to just highlight. So Lauren has playing with ball, echoed ball, which is good because that's the context. That's great. She said hat by self when playing with potato head. So hat and potato head, great. Babble when putting parts on potato. Ooh, laughing, running up to puppy, said hi. Singing little monkey jumping on the bed, but mumbles, can hardly understand. So it said puppy, laughing on swing, said we, said E, going down slide, babbles in playhouse, babbles when running to puppy, and said puppy. So that's great. That's an hour. I know with Michelle, who did podcast episode 78, She had 2 words, and 33 days later, she had 180 words and phrases. She's in chapter 8 of the book. One of the tips I would say with the language sample is when you are doing that, it's good to give that extra information, but also as professionals are listening to, and professionals and parents want to know how to do this best, is I went through and I highlighted ball, I highlighted high, puppy, and we. I counted those as 4 words, and then 2 sounds plus babbling. And you could put, babbling, a little monkey jumping on the bed, because that shows me she can talk. She can actually talk in little phrases. But we just want any information on these forms to be as clear, concise, and graphable. So if we know she had 4 words in 1 hour on baseline, then even if you wanted to do a language sample once a month or once a quarter, we have graphable data. Okay. The 1-page assessment, and then also the self-care checklist, is a part of the book resources. Dr. Mark Sundberg created the self-care checklist as part of a supplement to the BB map, and graciously allowed me to use his self-care checklist as part of my book and as part of my online courses, because I think it's just so important when you have a little girl like Avery, who's 3 years old, and you really don't really know where to start, right? Because she's got so many strengths and needs, and it's and a lot of people, I remember this advice long time ago when Lucas got an IQ test before he was 3, then again at 3, 4, 4, and he was getting IQ tests that were showing him below 70. So he did get diagnosed with an intellectual disability. But one of the psychologists who did a test pretty early on, she said the mistake she sees is that parents like you and I, Lauren, really heavily focus on language and sitting and cognitive and colors and shapes, and a lot of IQ and a lot of how kids are going to do in inclusive settings in the future. And a lot of their cognitive abilities actually judged on self-care tests, like if they're potty trained, if they can wash their hands, if they can stand in line and wait, if they can brush their teeth. And this is important, not just to boost an IQ, but for life, right? These are life skills for all kids. And if you're behind, then figuring out where you're behind, she's behind on potty training, but is she? Because she's not, she's a newly turned 3. So that's not as big of a concern as she doesn't want you to help her brush her teeth, or she doesn't want to help brush hair. And so that resistance to help and prompting is a big problem. So we can link that in the show notes, but that's basically what I found is not horrible for self-care, but fights for self-care tasks. She does drink out of a straw and an open cup, which are both great. And toileting, she does not have the readiness skills of a 24-month-old, but I would really put that way on the back burner for now. I do have a chapter in my book on potty training, and I would say that for her, potty training doesn't have to be completely on the back burner, but it has to be you could put her on the potty twice a day, morning and night. Or if she asks, or if she looks like she's straining, if she will go there and sit without a fight for a big reinforcement, go for it. I would not at this point schedule her sits or take her out of a diaper or anything like that. You said somewhere in your paperwork that she's finally letting you change her diaper without a big fight. So I would work on her tolerance for that for sure. So have you tried one of the things I recommend for kids who fight you changing diapers is to give them a reinforcer to hold or do something special with diaper changes. Is that what you did, or how did you get her to tolerate diaper changes?
So she's always been hard with diaper changes. So when she was old enough to like hold a phone, I would give her my phone with a little video. Now I give her the tablet or something distraction. Most of the time she's okay with diaper changes. If she has a bowel movement, it's yelling and fighting still. Just kind of depends on what mood we catch her in. So,
Yeah.
but definitely the tablet helps. So,
And the other thing I want to say about potty training and diaper changes is, as you're a registered nurse, I'm a registered nurse. And I consider myself a potty training expert to some degree, is if she's not having a bowel movement once or twice a day, it might be, is she having a bowel movement once or twice a day?
usually once a day. Sometimes she'll skip a day, but most of the time it's once a day.
Yeah. So that's okay. And even if she occasionally skips a day, but like if you would have said, no, actually she only goes every 5 days, or it's always a big, bowel movement and stuff, that tells me she's constipated. And then you really, even if your child is 3 or 4 or 5, you got to deal with the constipation before you can really help with potty training.
Yep.
Okay. So, all right. So the assessment form, the 1-page assessment form, we would start right on the first column, and we would start to go down here. And the first thing that we would see is that she has severe autism diagnosed, and that she has in-home ABA therapy 8 hours a week, currently waiting on more staff. And this is also an issue, is because you're learning through my book and my courses, the Turn Autism Around Approach, which is a very child-friendly, positive approach. And we've seen a lot of our online participants seeking out ABA providers who know how to implement the VB map, how to implement the verbal behavior approach, and then more recently, how to implement the Turn Autism Around approach, which is hard to find. So, when you were looking for ABA, and there's wait lists for ABA companies, and there's, oh, we don't take that insurance, or this co-pays, and we only do in clinic, or we only do at home, or we haven't ramped up after COVID. Is that what's happening in your situation?
Yeah, in Wisconsin, we qualify for Medicaid if your child has a disability. So even though we didn't financially qualify, we still get Medicaid. So first we had to apply for that and then look for ABA. I got lucky and there was really no wait list. I'm out of the Madison area. That's what they're using. But like the Milwaukee area for our company has a 6-month wait just to start ABA. So, I just happened to get lucky with that. So really we had to wait like 6 weeks so they can find staff, and they're still looking, but we got to start right now. So.
And then you said somebody started and they quit right away. So then you had to wait again. And that's frustrating. Yep. And then this is all in home, right?
Yep. All in home.
Yeah. So how are you and your husband feeling about having, people come into your house, and they're not paired with Avery. They're not, not trained in the Turn Autism Around approach. They're not, how is that all doing?
So, I'm kind of used to people coming and going, just because we've been having birth of 3 and everything. But I've been doing the calendar system that you recommend. And, the beginning of July, we didn't have many meltdowns, like 1 or 2. And now since we started like 3 weeks ago, we've had, anywhere between 1 on a good day or up to 6 a day of meltdowns. So you can really see that therapy has been really hard on Avery. So, then we have that. So then my baby's more upset when Avery is screaming, and, and it's been a long couple of weeks. So.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, are your providers it's just hard to translate everything in my courses and my book. And then you're the parent. How is that? We've done a couple parent and pro podcasts. We had Kelsey and Amy on, and we had Rhea and Kristen on. We can link those in the show notes, but those are parent professional kind of teams that are working together who know my approach and are, it's hard for you as a parent, right?
Yeah, sometimes I feel like if I say, well, I learned this in the book, I kind of feel like I'm overstepping because, as being a nurse, if I'm in a room and they're like, well, if you do this will be better. I'd feel like, well, did you go to nursing school? So, I really try and, at least the first couple of weeks, I've just tried to step back and kind of stay out of the way a little bit and let them do their thing. So I'm hoping they'll watch this video and you can give them some advice.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you found people, as long as they're positive, open to learning, open to, even if I know it's frustrating, like people have said to me when I was working with kids one-on-one, which I'm not doing right now. And, they'd be like, well, we want to do the peak assessment and peak programming. PEAK. And it's a great program. I have attended a 3-hour lecture on it. It's not that far-fetched. I wouldn't do it for a little kid. I would do it maybe after the kid was done the VB map, in my opinion, because I know the VB map well. I know how to program with the VB map. That's what I do. So for somebody to be saying to me, well, I want to use the peak program. It's like, well, then you don't need me because I don't have 40 hours to learn the peak program. I have my program. And I think a lot of professionals probably feel like that. Like we have our systems, we have our protocols, and we don't have the manpower even to do our protocols, let alone to have all this new learning and new procedures. But at the same time, you as a parent are Avery's best teacher and advocate for life. And you also have your other child, and you don't want her to get upset. And you already have the data to show that we went from 2 meltdowns a day to 6. It's like, you can't just stand back and go like, oh, well, they're the professional. So it really does put you, I think, in quite a bind.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I feel like with Avery, she is so hard to interact with. Like really all we're asking her to do is interact with us and do some simple puzzles and, games. And she has such a hard time with that. So, I think they haven't even been able to like implement anything because she is so stubborn about not wanting to do anything at this point. So
have you been able to like get her seated at the little table and do the early learner materials like on a daily basis? Have you been able to do that?
So I have, I've noticed that they don't really use the table during therapy as much. They kind of use the ground, and then they kind of follow Avery around because she doesn't really like to sit still. So I found if I put a TV in her therapy room. So I found if I turn the TV on, something she likes, she'll sit at the table and we can kind of get some things done. And she'll sit there for a while. I think the longest she sat there was like 10 minutes, which was our best run. So, she speaks a little bit, but like the shoebox program, she likes putting them in the box and she's starting to learn the cards and everything. So a little bit, I try to do it in the morning, at least once, and then again in the afternoon. So at least twice a day I'm trying right now.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things, and I do have a video blog on like why table time is key, and it's in my book and in my courses, and it goes against what 95% of autism providers are learning and doing, especially for young children, is they have been taught to the way to pair in their minds is to follow the child around and follow the child's lead and to pair. But the problem with that is a child like Avery is going to waste a lot of time. And we don't have a lot of time to waste because we want to turn things around now while she's young. And so pairing up the table and making, for professionals listening, we basically combine natural environment teaching and table time, intensive teaching. We combine it together. So it's basically very early learner materials that are more like what you would do on the floor, but it's at a table, so that we can gradually mix in some matching, some puzzle inserts, but we have strong reinforcement at the table. It's not like the old discrete trial drill. It's very light. We need 5 reinforcements at least. We need a couple edibles, a drink, an electronic, potentially some toys. But if you say, I don't want screen time at the table, we have a policy, family screen free, or child can't have edibles, they have a severe feeding issue, they have tube feeding. Like, none of these are in stone. This is what I recommend in general. And you, even before we hit record, you said like, she doesn't even like to see like little baggies of candy or whatever. She'll start obsessing, or she obsesses with screen time. So then people are like, well, we won't use screen time. We won't use candy, but you got to use something that she likes. And then some of the free time can't be just free access to all this stuff. So I even said, like, if you're going to give her candy, break it all up in teeny little pieces and only put like 5 little pieces or 10 little pieces in a little baggie. Okay, that's what she's going to get. Then she's also going to get 5 little pretzels, and she's also going to get a drink, and you're going to give her sips and, go in, give her a sip, take it back. Like, you need to control the reinforcers. If you're going to use bubbles, or you're going to use a wind up toy, you're going to use a floater thing, you have all that stuff and you are delivering that. She's not just sitting there engaging with that while you're trying to teach. The same way is as she's roaming around. If she picks up a cow and you say, oh, cow says moo, she doesn't say anything. She drops the cow. She goes look out the window. Oh, the therapist says there's a tree. She's not learning. If she's sitting at the table with these early learner materials, she's getting dozens, hundreds of trials of active learning. And we never want to force a child to the table. It's all pairing, it's all positive, and it's all preventative. We work on increasing the good behaviors we want while decreasing the bad behaviors. Okay, so from looking at this assessment, we want to go left-hand column first. First need I see on the left-hand column is safety. And so I put that safety on the one-page plan, which is also in the book resources. Safety is the number one need. Now, we actually have 2 planning forms that we're going to link in the show notes. One planning form that Lauren did, and that is starts with feed self as a strength, has a nighttime routine, no crying at bedtime as a strength, according to Lauren. But I ended up redoing this because this is the way I kind of work. It's kind of like a cardiologist looks at an EKG. Excuse me. So I look at this form and I basically go down the left column of the one-page assessment. I see the first need is safety. I'm going to put that right here, safety. And since Avery has a lot of problem behaviors that are related to safety, I actually went to the very last portion of the one-page assessment and put her major problem behaviors as her second need. SIB, self-injurious behavior, can't leave the house, addicted to screen time, aggressive towards 7-month-old sister. Lauren has this in her plan. It's just her plan. It was just more wordy and not kind of in the order that I would do. So on the strength side of my plan, I think the overall strengths of Avery, or she can speak and echo 10 to 15 words. She can tact several words with an echo. So you hold up the picture of banana and you say banana and she can say it. She can count objects up to 10. She has some delayed echolalia, clean up, monkeys jumping on the bed, baby shark, only parts, and seems to change weekly. So those are all intraverbals. And so that's actually a very good sign. I mean, these things, intraverbals only start at about 18-month typical development. And the fact that she can say multiple words strung together is a good sign. She can do puzzles. Excellent. She can be nice to her sister by patting her sister on her head or giving her hugs occasionally. And she now tolerates some diaper changes. But her needs, what I came up with, what I put on the planning form, are the safety awareness, the major problem behaviors that I just covered. I think a big need from the self-care checklist and from problem behaviors is, I think Avery is very prompt aversive. So she doesn't want you touching her to help her. And I wouldn't see a need as not asking for help at this point. I would see a need as not tolerating help. And I just like more, I don't teach help, especially early. I teach what they need help with. So if they need help with puzzle, I would want them to say puzzle instead of help. Help becomes just a very generalized mess. And, a child like Avery could be like signing and saying more and freaking out. And if the item is out of sight, you don't know what it is. And so we need to really give her structure so that we're helping her man for the item or the action that she wants instead of focusing on help. But I do think that a 2-year-old or a newly turned 3-year-old with severe autism, we can't have it be like, she just won't let me help her, or she lets me do that. It's like, no, we have to be the guide. And she might have, when you were talking about her like delirious kind of meltdowns and she really gets out of a state, like I would also really recommend that you rule out medical issues, that you rule out, you say here, and so on the need column, she's a picky eater, and she has sleep issues. She could have a nutritional deficit. She could need zinc. She could need magnesium. She might need a medication to calm her nervous system down. She might be having seizures. Like, we don't know. And so with your medical background as well, you understand. And it really is, if you're sitting there listening, oh, we ruled out medical problems, anybody listening, or the professional might be thinking, well, they said they ruled out medical. I'm here to tell you, you are unable to rule out medical issues in a child like Avery, or any child that's not fully conversational. So we should always be looking into that. We have a couple episodes on picky eating with Dr. Keith Williams. We can link, and we also have an episode with a functional medicine nutritionist, Denise Voigt, that might be helpful. She has sleep issues. She wakes up often, and melatonin is used. I mean, Lucas has been on melatonin since he's been 3. He just turned 25. The studies show that it's okay, but obviously check with your doctor. It is an over-the-counter supplement. Some kids react poorly to melatonin. If she's napping at all, I would really look at making sure those naps stop by 3 p.m. Because if napping goes later, it will mess up your nighttime sleep as well. Potty training is a need, but I would totally put that on the back burner. I would say, in addition to safety and major problem behaviors being, I'd say the number one thing that for Avery, is number 2 is not vocally demanding for things that she wants. Instead, she pulls an adult, cries, grabs. And I think once you get her manding better, her problem behaviors should go down. A lot of her problem behaviors are really defective man, whether you know what she wants or not. And then there's some things like you can't do that. Like, we're not emptying out the whole refrigerator. And so how do you say no, give her something else without her screaming?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because if she starts screaming, that's not the time to negotiate. Well, we can't do that. She is young enough, though, that you can physically move her to a safe area until she calms down. And that's another reason why it's so great that you're doing this hot seat, because, there's families out there with 10-year-olds that are having meltdowns like her. And that
Yeah.
you can't move them then.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
And actually, one thing that the therapist mentioned was, because I just said, why do they hurt themselves when they, and she was saying that it could be attention, and that sometimes they recommend a helmet to protect her head if she would have the meltdown. Now, I know Avery would never let me put a helmet on her head because I can't even hardly put it up in a ponytail or cut her bangs. So, and I know I've heard some things about you talk about helmets and in your book. So
well, and Kelsey in episode 3, our community manager, she was bringing her 2.5-year-old to a clinic, and he was banging his head on hard surfaces up to 100 times a day. And she was driving an hour each way, and they were working on colors when he couldn't man for things. So I'm not saying that you should never consider a helmet, but I would never consider a helmet for a child. It's our job to keep them safe. I mean, for a 3-year-old, you can, put them in a room, be with them, so that they're not banging their head on hard surfaces. And Kelsey was able to turn it around herself by following the 4 steps of the Turn Autism Around approach. So, if you're not following these steps, that's what you should do. It's all based on all the science of ABA, all the science of B.F. Skinner's verbal behavior, and the Turn Autism Around approach, which is based on 35 years as a registered nurse, as a mom, as a BCBA with a doctorate. And, this isn't, for professionals listening out there, this isn't like a whole new thing. It's not like I'm saying you got to learn the peak assessment, or you got to, it's stuff you're already doing. Just you might not be doing it in the order that I would recommend. So, okay, so cannot man vocally. And one of the strengths is that if you hold up a banana and you say banana, she'll say banana. When she wants something, like she wants candy or something, or she wants the iPad, if you hold it up and you say iPad, she'll say iPad. But if you just hold it up, what will she do? Just grab?
Yeah, or fall backwards and cry.
Okay.
So
one of the things, and you just told me that you actually got the verbal behavior bundle, which is after the toddler course. What I would recommend for the verbal behavior bundle. You got that paid for as parent training from your organization. Is that right?
Yep. In Wisconsin, they have a child long-term support waiver program. So any child, regardless of income, can qualify for that. So, I just said, there's this book and this author that I really have learned a lot from, and she has these courses, and they paid for the first course and then the whole bundle, the next bundle. So,
oh,
yeah.
That's excellent. So anyway, the reason I'm asking is because this is covered in my verbal behavior bundle.
Okay.
So basically what you and the listeners out there can do is when you hold up things, to start to use transfer procedures. And I think I may have touched on this in my second book. I definitely touched on my first book, but so you would say, let's do banana, because that's just easier. Okay. So, but you hold up a banana. She wants the banana. She likes bananas. She wants to eat the banana. You hold it up, and you can say banana once, and then she says banana, but don't use the 1 word times 3 strategy. In this case, say banana. She says banana. Right. What do you want? Or tell mommy. And then you could give her a b, and then she says banana, and then you give it to her. So you basically fade out your full prompt. Okay. So I know in your initial plan, you said use the 1 word times 3 strategy. Yes. And once a child can echo something, stop using the 1 word times 3 strategy. Then you start using transfer procedures. So she wants the door open, whether or not she's ever said the word open before. Open. Okay. So now she just said the word open for the very first time. Excellent. So open the door, go out. But then when it's time to come back in, assuming she wants to come back in, if she doesn't want to do something, that's not the time to pair and to teach these words. Then you say open. She echoes open maybe on the first time. Right. Tell mommy again. Oh, and you can give her a partial prompt. Open.
Okay.
Excellent. We're going to open. And you could try this with a box.
Okay.
You could try it. So you could kind of have target words of things she likes. And these are the procedures that open the floodgates to gaining what we call echoic control. So we do have an echoic control podcast we can link in the show notes, but, use the strategies. Once you get an echo, use things to transfer it. And then also, when she's doing a puzzle, say she does the pig and the cow and, there's only, or a potato head, if you do the same things in order, you could even put the parts of the bag in a bag, the parts of the potato head in a brown paper bag, right? And then you shake it up and you say, which one do you want first? And then you might even point to the hole where the eyes are. And you might even say, eyes, what do you want? And then she'll say eyes, and then you dig in the bag. Oh, what did you want? And you can, kind of trick her into being more spontaneous with her manding and acting. And always combine your mands and your tacks as much as possible and do it throughout the day. It doesn't have to be like set targets, but the words that she can say. Also in the verbal behavior bundle course, there is an interverbal bonus video. Since she has some delayed echolalia, like monkeys jumping on the bed, that would be good for her to do too. Okay. Just a couple more needs, and we're going to have to really go fast here because we're kind of taking a lot of time. Okay. So she's poor receptive language, does not imitate or match. And she has social and play skill deficits like pretend play and really high play is going to come later, just like potty training. I wouldn't focus too much on that. There is chapter 7 of my book, which covers that. Imitation and matching. Definitely you want to be teaching. And since she has some puzzle building skills, I think imitation and matching will come. Did a podcast on imitation recently with some good videos in there. And then, so that's the assessment. So you did the videos, the language sample, the 1-page assessment, the self-care checklist. And you may be listening thinking, oh God, that's a lot of work. But really, that whole thing could take like an hour total for everything. I mean, is that what you would recommend? Am I like really over?
And I think it also helps you kind of figure out where your child's at too. Yeah. So, before, like, I've got all of these problems and this kind of helped me narrow in, where are my problems at?
Yeah. So then the 1-page plan is just the strengths and the needs. And then we make a plan, which my plan, which I summarized, it was very similar to the bottom part of your plan, was keep Avery safe, use locks, gates, baby sister in the playpen while you're out of the room. Use ABC calendar data for all major problem behaviors. You're doing that. Use the shush and give procedure and do not offer reinforcer or give reinforcement when crying. She needs to learn that crying's not going to get it. Talking will get it when she's calm. Desensitization procedures for self-care tasks, feeding and prompting. You said you got like 3/4 of the way through the book and then you joined the course. So the very second to the last chapter is all about desensitization. So I definitely try to finish the book. Use the 1 word times 3 strategy throughout the day. But for words she has said and is a strong reinforcer, use those transfer procedures, which I outlined. Start table time sessions. And I would say for the staff that's coming into your home, it would be really good for you to kind of be almost like the lead therapist to say, okay, let me sit down with Avery, and you're the trainee, and you're going to sit down with us at the table. And, you're going to offer reinforcement or hold up the pig. I'm going to model it. Then you're going to do it. And there's parents out there like, oh God, I just want ABA to come in and do it. But remember, you're the captain of the ship. You're the best teacher and advocate for life. You are Avery's voice at this point. You know how to turn it around. and you can help the professionals who will help not only Avery, but other kids. And so we're all in this together. Don't think like, oh, the professionals are going to get mad, or we need to all work together. And then she's still not really responding to her name. So limit the use of her name during the day, except when you're working on it. So when you have a strong reinforcer, say Avery, say it close, and offer her reinforcement right away. And it should get better. And okay, so that's the assessment and the plan. There's 2 more steps to the Turn Autism Around approach, which is teaching and evaluating using easy data. So with the teaching step, obviously it's all throughout the course, all in my book about the steps to teaching. And it's a lot more. I mean, that's a lot of stuff that we just covered, but it's, we can't just in general. I think the more help you can get, the more ABA therapists in there who are all kind of treating Avery the same, doing the same things, giving her the structure she needs. If you can get a church volunteer or a mommy's helper, or financially, if you can get people in there, they don't have to be necessarily trained therapists, just to keep her busy, keep her safe, keep her motivated, make sure you remain the captain of the ship, no matter how much therapy you get. Let me see what else. For like prompt avoidance and stuff, I would make sure that she really wants the item. So for bubbles and that sort of thing. Or if it's a wind up toy and she really wants it to flip around, she wants it to kind of, that's the time to be prompting her, because she wants it to go and she's really unable to do it herself. For teeth brushing, you might want to investigate like an electronic toothbrush or a toothbrush that sings. And, you might want to do it not with toothpaste, maybe at the table, like, let's practice brushing our teeth real quick. Let's count to 10. 1, 2, 3, make it fun, even vibrate it on the outside of her cheeks, just pair it up so that it's not such a fight. For her hair brushing, she's an adorable little child from the videos, but you might want to think about cutting her hair a little shorter so it's not such a fight, or, using detangler, anything that we can prevent the struggle and prevent any sensory issues that she's probably having. I wrote down here, I didn't know you moved up to the verbal behavior bundle, which you did, finish the book. And make sure that you pair the professionals in her life with the approach that you want to use, that is working and will work in the short term and the long term. And then the final step of the Turn Autism Around approach is taking easy data. You're already using the calendar data system, which is explained multiple places in the book, the courses, the podcast. And also keep a word list of her pop out words when she's saying it. Maybe you want to do a language sample every week, or maybe once you get the therapist sitting at the table, maybe you can even have them take data on her words daily. And that will be super motivating, not just to you, but to the professionals as well. And then if she has a word list, you could alphabetize them and keep them on the refrigerator in her therapy book. So we're all on the same page. We have some places we have number 1 words, which are clearly articulated words, and number 2 words. And so everybody's on the same page. Oh, that's how she says Nana instead of banana. Okay. We're still going to, do that, but everybody's going to accept that. We're going to be working on banana. And just in general, when you're taking, like when you made the language sample, just, take data that can be graphed, and any data that you're taking or that your ABA therapists are taking, or if you're a professional out there that you're taking, make sure it's not just wasteful data, like that it can be graphed, that we are motivated by it. Words heard is a great motivator. Man's is a great motivator. Tantrums, meltdowns, whatever you're going to call it, on your calendar data, that to go down near 0 is a great motivator. Tolerance for foods, tolerance for lots of things. And I think you're definitely on the right track. I know I feel like I talked most of this, so hopefully
Okay. Yep.
you can bear with us, but she has a ton of strengths. It is a very good thing that she has you as her mom, because you are highly motivated and you're willing to share with the world the things that you're learning and the things you're still struggling with. And these are very common. She's in a good place. There's a lot of hope for her future. And whatever happens, I know that you are going to, really continue to be her best advocate, no matter what. So any final questions before we wrap it up?
So I guess one of my main questions is that definitely with COVID and after her diagnosis, we kind of stopped bringing her out into public. And I know we have a lot of things to work on. So I was just wondering what your opinion was, if we should start doing that again, or if we should try and get some of these behaviors under control, or what you recommend.
Yeah, it's really tough. And I think a lot of families are struggling with the exact same thing. I wouldn't put her in anything structured. I wouldn't put her with people that don't know what they're doing. But once you get ABA therapists in place and that are good, okay with 10 minutes of table time on their own, delivering reinforcers and getting her to comply. And you might think like, well, what does that have to do with, eloping from a playground? It has a lot to actually do with it. One of the reasons that Kelsey's son Brentley stopped banging his head on hard surfaces and she could take him out of the house without a leash and a harness was because she learned his reinforcers. He got used to, just general sitting and attending and awareness and all that kind of stuff. So I think I would venture out to potentially an enclosed little playground on times when there's no other kids there, with a therapist, with an extra pair of hands. Maybe even if you could leave your baby daughter at home so that it's you and the therapist going places with your daughter. Maybe venture into a grocery store and buy 3 things and have her, eat animal crackers in the front seat of the grocery cart or whatever, but don't go in there for an hour-long shopping trip. So venture out, but with help and with support, and make sure you keep her safe.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah. Okay. So to wrap it up, we always end the same way. It sounds like you've had a really stressful year or two.
Yeah.
So part of my podcast goals are for parents and professionals to be less stressed and lead happier lives. So do you have any self-care tips or stress management tools?
So I think my biggest thing is that I'm lucky enough to have a family that is supportive. Sometimes I feel like I don't want to just keep asking them to come help. But like the other day, Avery had a really bad meltdown. I couldn't take care of my youngest. So I called my sister and she ran right over. Or I know my parents live right down the road. I could call them. So if you have a village behind you, use them. They want to help. So, yeah, they're my people. So I'm lucky to have them. So
I think that's great advice. Lean on people. And if you don't have family in the area, friends, other support groups, there's people online that are in your exact situation. And then also if you're a member of a church or some kind of organization, even the Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, they have to have volunteer hours. College kids sometimes can do it, can need observation hours or so just reach out as much as possible and get help. I think that's a great tip. All right. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure getting to know you better, Lauren, and I wish you and Avery all the best.
Thank you so much. I really so happy to have this opportunity to say thanks over Zoom. So thank you for all the education you've given me. So.
Oh, thank you. All right. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
And for all the resources for this podcast, remember to go to marybarbera.com/138. We're going to have all of Avery's documents and you'll be able to see kind of Lauren's plan and my revised plan. And really, hopefully this has given you a really good start to working with any child, to just put everything down on paper and get through the 4 steps to make a better plan. If you're a parent or early intervention professional working with young children with signs of autism, Or if you're a parent or professional helping older children with moderate to severe autism, you'll definitely want to order my new Turn Autism Around book today. You'll get access to all the book resources that will help you right away. For all the details, go to turnautismaround.com.